Brilliant Living HQ presents the Changeability Podcast. And now your hosts, Catherine Bryant and Julian Illman.
Hello and welcome to episode 18 of the Changeability Podcast.
We've come of age.
Yes, we have, I
We
suppose.
are 18 today.
And we're coming to you today from brilliantlivinghq.com, where we help you manage your mind for your best life and business. So hello from me, Catherine.
And from me, Julian. And today we're talking about affirmations. How to create your own affirmations, looking at the best ways to do them yourself, and how to make use of them so that they work and help you get what you want. And this episode is snappily called How to Make Affirmations That Work. It is the repetition of affirmations that leads to belief. And once that belief becomes a deep conviction, things start to happen. Muhammad Ali. And last week in episode 17, all about the power of your words, we looked at the way you think about yourself and how you speak to yourself.
Yes, in your little inner voice.
Whether that's good or bad, and how it's important that we make those thoughts positive ones, which affirm you and what you want to be and strengthen you and help you create the life or business you want.
Yes, because when you affirm yourself, which is why they're often called affirmations or positive affirmations, but could also be incantations or mantras or positive self-talk. When you do this, basically what you're doing is creating powerful, positive, empowering statements.
Ooh, yummy.
And we also looked at why you need them.
To overcome and replace negative and limiting self-talk and self-beliefs with positive self-beliefs that support your goals and aspirations.
And the reason why affirmations work is to do with that thing called neuroplasticity or brain plasticity. Do you remember that?
Yes, indeed. We explored two of the things that lie behind how affirmations work. And one of those, as Catherine says, was neuroplasticity or brain plasticity. The idea that you can learn new skills and develop new thoughts, whatever your age. And how this flies in the face of previous scientific thought, that our brain capacity lessens as we get older.
And also we looked at how you create your new thoughts and you essentially grow them through strengthening the neural pathways, like the well-walked forest path.
Oh yes, that well-walked forest path.
So on today's episode, we're going to go from theory to practice as we talk about how to create your own personal affirmations, DIY affirmations, and how to use them in your everyday life so that they can help you change or improve what you want to change. And also to help you feel good while you do it, because you will be raising your feel-good hormones at the same time.
And you know how I love DIY, don't you?
Yeah, well, you're quite an expert.
Yes, it only took me 83 hooks, screws to put up a hook or something like that.
Oh, what, when we're having a picture put up?
Yeah, disaster. Hey-ho, onward
Anyway,
and upward.
moving on.
How to create your own personal affirmations.
So how do we start with creating your own personal affirmations? Well, the first place to start is with your goals or desires. So think about what it is you want. Do you want more confidence, self-esteem? Do you want to have a better business or job? Do you want to lose weight, be more healthy? I don't know, more money, more success, more creativity, more love, more fun and more enthusiasm, more purpose, whatever it is you want, you're going to start with that, your goal and desire. And we did talk about this in previous episodes, 9, 10 and 11. And in fact, one of the good things about creating your own affirmations is that they help you gain clarity about your desires and intentions, because this is where you start.
Excellent.
So you take your goal and you find your limiting beliefs. And we talked about this in episodes 13 and 14. So things like, I'm not good enough, people like me, whatever it is, or I'm naturally fat, I'm naturally shy, I'm not very attractive, I'm not very lovable, why would someone love me, I'll never be rich, I'm a loser. All these sorts of limiting, annoying, irritating beliefs that we build up about ourselves. And I wasn't saying they were all mine, by the way. Otherwise, I would be in a bit of a bad way.
And after you've got all those thoughts in your head, the next step was about clearing those negative self-beliefs. And we talked about imagining them flying or floating away in a container. Do you remember? On that ship, or we were writing them down and tearing them up, or burning the pieces of paper symbolically or physically.
So basically, you've got your goal and desires, and you've looked at your limiting beliefs. You've got your little list of limiting beliefs. And now we're going to replace these negative self-beliefs with empowering positive beliefs.
Excellent. We're going to take each of your negative limiting beliefs and change it into a positive, empowering belief statement that will support you achieving your goals.
So what you're doing here is essentially you are flipping the limiting belief around to create your positive affirmation.
So it's like the opposite of what's holding you back.
So it's going to be exactly the opposite of what's holding you back, or what you don't want to believe, or how you don't want to behave, okay?
Right, so how do we go about doing this?
It's probably helpful to look at a couple of examples here, and we can go back to the money example that we've used in some of the other episodes, okay. For a bit of consistency.
So if we start with something like people like me don't get wealthy, how would we change that around then?
So you go from like people like me don't get wealthy could then become I am exactly the sort of person that has great wealth.
Right, excellent.
Let's look at another one. So rich people are selfish and greedy. What could that become?
The wealthier I am, the more I have to share.
Yeah, I like it. And then I'll never have enough money.
I always have all the money I need. Sounds good, doesn't it? I love it.
One more?
If I get more, someone else gets less.
Oh, yeah, that sort of scarcity mindset idea. Well, you could transform that into, I live in an abundant world.
Nice one.
So as you go through your statements and change them into your empowering statements, it's really important to write them out and to make sure they're relevant to you as well, because these are the new personal beliefs that will sustain and strengthen you and getting the changes you want. Can you remember when we talked about the original Latin for...
Affirmare.
Oh, yeah. I couldn't remember what it was, but you could. One of those original meanings was about strengthening.
To strengthen.
That's right.
Or make firm.
Yeah.
I like something to be made firm.
Yes. Okay.
Keep going.
So, yeah.
Keep going.
So, as we said, it's important to write them down, but your affirmations can be more effective if you write them out in a certain way. And you may have noticed a couple of things about the examples we used, or you may not, that they were all positive and in the moment.
Ah, okay. So what's the significance of them being positive and in the present moment?
Okay, well, let's take the one about being in the present tense.
Yeah, okay.
Affirmations convey or verify something that is already so.
Right.
That's the idea of them. You want to write them as if they're already so.
They make firm or real what you're thinking about.
There, absolutely. And, after all, that's what the word means, as well as the idea of like support or encouragement. So in other words, you are affirming that your new empowering beliefs already exist. And in doing so, you help to bring them into reality.
Okay, so it's important to use the present tense when creating your affirmations rather than the future, because in some ways that helps your brain to look for ways to make it so now, to fit in maybe with your expectations and intentions now rather than at maybe some indeterminate point in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And you assume they're in place now. So, for example, I have enough money now, or I have all the money I need, rather than I will have enough money, or I will pay off all my debts.
Yeah, so on some subconscious level, if you said I will pay off all my debts, that's sort of never quite realised, is it?
Yeah, it's sort of like sometime in the future.
And you mentioned the idea of a positive statement. Tell us about that.
Well, affirmations are empowering statements of what you want. Or when I say they are, ideally they are.
Rather than what you don't want.
Yeah, rather than what you don't want. So they should be positive in tonal ways. So, for example, I have all the money I need, rather I am no longer in debt.
Okay.
It's a similar sort of idea. But yeah, it's about always making them positive, because it's hard to think, or it's harder to think in terms of negatives, isn't it?
Yeah. Do you remember that there's that thing which reminds me when somebody says, "Oh, don't think about white elephants. What do you think about?"
Yes, exactly.
Or don't think about yellow bananas.
Of course, as soon as you said it, it's what you think about, isn't it? It's what you focus on, and your brain picks up the key words. So whether you say don't or do is sort of irrelevant, because your brain's just thinking of the actual key words. So it's really about making sure that you're giving your brain the words that you want it to pick up on.
So if you said I'm no longer overweight, your brain would pick up on the fact of being overweight.
Yeah, well, the other thing is about that's one reason for it. But the other really important thing is when you do affirmations, when you write them, we're going to talk in a little while about how you actually use them and make them part of your life. What you want to do, ideally, is evoke the feeling that you want. Okay. All right. So this is another really good reason why you want them to be positive, not negative.
Yes.
Because if you think about it, words have feelings attached to them.
Yes.
And
positive or negative connotation.
Yeah, they sort of have their own energy. I mean, some people talk about words having energy.
Yes.
And they sort of do in a way, and it's an emotional energy. So what you might be saying might have exactly the same outcome at the end of it. Okay.
Yes.
But the way you say it has a different impact on how you feel. So, for example, if you say, I no longer struggle for money, and you compare that to something like, I've got all the money I need.
Yes.
Do you see what I mean? One is I no longer struggle for money.
Is it the connotation of the word struggle, or is it more than that?
Well, I think it's just that it's a generally negative connotation, even though the meaning is not negative.
Well, I suppose
the
also
outcome's not negative, because the outcome's the same. It's that you've got enough money.
And the words also trigger off things based on our previous experience of struggle and the emotion which is associated with that.
I think it does. And I mean, there are other examples. You could say something like, I'm no longer fat, or I'm no longer overweight.
Yes.
Compared to I'm slim. Yes. I'm slender, or whatever, however you want to describe it. You know, the fact you're no longer overweight feels completely different to me anyway, to I'm slim.
It's
or
also
I'm my ideal weight, or however it is you want to put it.
Yeah. I think it's referencing almost a previous state.
Yeah, maybe that is it. Yeah, I think you might be right. But anyway, so the other thing about it is keeping the language that you use real for you. Okay.
Right.
So if you're not the sort of person who talks in highfalutin or spiritual language as a general rule, then don't write your affirmations like that. Keep it in the sort of language that you will use every day and that you feel comfortable with.
The next thing you need to think about is to be kind or understanding of yourself. So you're accepting your affirmation. And what you're doing here is affirming your new way of thinking. Although you're recognising your limiting beliefs, try to think in terms of where you are moving to, rather than focusing on or being critical of your past or where you are now.
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, if you find yourself being irritated for the way that you've been thinking about yourself, just simply recognise that these thoughts so far have not helped you get where you want to be. And now it's time to change. And this is your opportunity to change. And this is why some people like to add an extra affirmation, such as, I love and fully accept myself. to their list. And it's a really good place to start with this.
Yeah, I suppose it sets a good tone. It's a bit of self-love, which never really goes amiss, does it?
Exactly. And it's so easy to hear that inner critical voice in us. But starting with a simple affirmation like, I love and truly accept myself, sort of diffuses it in some way.
Do you find when you first use these words, it can make you feel a little bit funny saying some of these things?
Well, I think it can do that, yes. But the more you say it, the more you get used to the thought of it, which after all is part of the understanding behind affirmations. But it's also a really good exercise for us to help us think, do I really love myself? Do I really fully
so it's a reminder sometimes of those limiting beliefs as well.
Exactly.
Isn't it?
It goes straight back to that.
And as you write your affirmations, maybe it's a good idea to try to think of them as beliefs that expand and enhance your experience of life and open up opportunity. And this is exactly the sort of opposite to limiting or contracting beliefs that constrict, stifle, or even indeed limit your experience and close down your opportunity.
Yeah, this is all about expansion and living big.
Excellent. If you were only here, audience, in the room, you would see Catherine gesticulating wildly.
I am.
Not a pretty sight.
Now you know the theory behind affirmations and how to create your own personal affirmations, you can make them part of your daily life and they will help reprogram your thought patterns and gradually change your subconscious beliefs. So, how to actually use them, and that's what we're going to move on to now.
Did your phone just play "You Are My Sunshine"? He asked.
Uh-huh. It's a personalised ringtone. It's affirming.
He laughed until the dignified raising of her eyebrows told him she was serious.
Affirmations are good for your self-esteem,
she told him.
Every time my phone tells me I'm its sunshine, it makes me feel good.
Abby Gaines.
And there's a clue in this quote about how to use affirmations. And this quote is actually from a novel called Married by Mistake by Abby Gaines. But that's really beside the point. The clue is that it picks up on how your thoughts are created and imprinted on your conscious and subconscious because it's all in the repetition.
Repetition is the key. The repetition is the key for creating neural pathways, impressing new ways of thinking about yourself to lead to new ways of acting and doing. I suppose it's about consistently implanting and reaffirming your affirmations through repetition. And that means going through them every day for a while.
Yeah, so how long is a while? That's a good question, isn't it?
The $50 million.
Yeah. And of course, it's going to vary a lot.
So the perceived wisdom suggests that it takes about 30 days to change a habit, including thinking habits. So actively using the affirmations for at least 30 continuous days is a good idea. But it could be more, it could be less time before your subconscious starts accepting your new beliefs and you change the underlying limiting behaviours. So you're going to have to experiment a bit with it.
Yeah, and don't be disheartened if you find it takes more than 30 days to become ingrained. I mean, it just takes longer to embed some habits, well, more than others, really.
Yeah, they've become a habit of a lifetime, haven't they?
Yeah, and sometimes don't you think that bad habits seem so much easier to develop than good ones?
Yeah, definitely so.
Now, there was an interesting study done on developing new habits. This was done in 2010.
Right.
And it showed varied timescales on how long it took to depending on what habit needed changing and how entrenched it was. So the study was by some academics,
right.
Cornelia van Jaarsveld, Henry Potts and Jane Wardle. And the study was called Modelling Habit Formation in the Real World.
What sort of sample were they using?
They used a sample of 96 volunteers.
Okay.
And the results concluded that it took these 96 volunteers an average of 66 days to form a new habit.
Oh, so considerably longer than the 30 days we just said.
Yeah, but you see, some people even say 21 days, don't they, for habits? Some people say 30 days. But there was a big variation in the individual times.
What was the shortest time?
The shortest time was only 18 days.
Okay, so that's quite a good average then, maybe.
But the longest time was 254 days.
Oh my goodness, who was that?
I don't know.
Own up.
They must have had a really bad habit to change.
I suppose it's not
mustn't
really
they?
surprising when you think that some of our beliefs take ages to build up over time. So if you're listening out there, have patience. You can experience changes very quickly also, but they can sometimes take longer.
Yeah, and actually the lovely, lovely thing about using affirmations is, in spite of how long it might take to change the underlying habits, they can have an almost immediate effect sometimes on you in lifting your mood and your perception.
Mood enhancing.
Yeah, they are, and they can change the way you think about yourself and feel. You know, some people say that affirmations rely on using a placebo, but I say, who cares?
Right.
Because actually, I think that there is a lot more to it than that, and I think we've probably shown that as well.
Half the medicine throughout the ages has been on placebo, and we know the power of the mind as well, don't we?
So whatever it is, I say bring it on.
So it can work as a fantastic pick-me-up and confidence builder and improve your general outlook on life.
Yeah. I love affirmations. I mean, I use them for all sorts of things, sort of general and specific, depending on what goals I'm working on, what I'm doing, how I feel, you know. And I think the secret is don't think of them as a chore or something to tick off, something that has to be done, because they can be uplifting. They can be a feel-good exercise. And if you like doing them, you won't mind how long they take.
So the repetition, it might be at least 30 days, it might be a bit longer. But as the quote of our show from Muhammad Ali said, it's the repetition of affirmations that leads to belief. And once that belief becomes a deep conviction, things start to happen.
That's right. So enjoy the experience.
Go with the flow.
And it's not just about saying it over and over. Okay, it's not just about the repetition. It's also about how you say it, which can make them more effective.
So we should say things with emotion.
Yeah, that's the first thing. Say it with emotion.
And that accelerates the process when you add this emotional impact, because you feel the emotion associated with each affirmation, don't you? It's about making it bigger and larger, and you remember things which are more emotionally charged, I suppose, don't you?
Yeah, you know yourself that you always remember events more easily that have an emotional impact on you, whether it's good or bad, don't you?
Yeah, you want to feel how you would feel if the affirmation was absolutely true at this time. So, for example, how would you feel if you had all the time to do what you want, or always had more than enough money for the things you want to do? Happy?
Yep.
Relieved?
Yep.
Excited?
Yes.
Excellent. All of the above. Tick.
So if you can try and get this sense of this feeling as you say or do, as you say your affirmations and you think about your affirmations, then that emotional connection to your subconscious will give them more impact and increase their effectiveness.
I thought it was really interesting that as we started to say it, our voices started to lift.
Yeah.
There was more emotional impact, isn't it? You just start thinking, great, that would be fantastic.
And of course, as well as using emotion with your affirmations, is to say them with the sense of expectancy.
Expectancy that they're going to happen?
Yeah, so it's about having faith in your ability to bring about this affirmation and to bring it to reality. It's about saying it as if it is actually here now. Okay, so you've created your affirmations. You know it's about repetition with emotion and expectation thrown in as well. But how do we actually do it? What do we actually do with these affirmations? And that's what we're going to talk about now.
Lead on, Macduff.
The most basic must-do technique with affirmations is to go through them go through these empowering affirmations that you've just created as often as you can. And that means repeating them several times at intervals throughout the day, ideally, and a minimum of once a day.
How do you do this?
Well, I suggest you read them out loud and in your head. And as you say each affirmation, remember to try and get that sense of emotion into it as if it's already real to you. And reading stuff out loud is quite a different experience, isn't it, to reading something in your head? So. And it's good to do both, actually. But when you read something out loud, it's like you really put it out there. So the other thing about repeating your affirmations is there are different ways to actually do it. So what I mean by that is you can repeat them in quick succession.
What's that called?
That's called massed practice. Okay, so that's when you keep saying the same thing over and over and over again, but very, quickly together. Or there's something called spaced practice, which means that you do the repetition at different times throughout the day.
Is one better than t'other?
One's not really better than the other, but they do different things. They have different effects. So the massed practice, when you repeat something in quick succession, is apparently, according to psychologists, the quickest way to learn something. But it's also the quickest way to forget something, okay? So you learn it quickly, but it doesn't necessarily stick. It's not necessarily going right into your brain.
Okay.
Whereas the space practice, which is where you repeat something at different times throughout a day over a longer time scale, brings about slower but longer lasting learning.
The ideal, then, is a combination of both, repeating affirmations several times in a row at intervals throughout the day. And that will give you fast and longer lasting learning.
Yeah, that's right. And that basically is the way to do affirmations. There is nothing really clever about it. There's nothing hard about it. You just repeat them. You say them to yourself. You say them over and over again to yourself. You say them out loud. You say them in your head. You say them lots at a time, or you say them spread throughout the day. That is the basics. But there are other things that we can do to mix them up a bit and to make them more memorable in a way.
And ways which resonate with you.
Yeah, and to find the best ways to resonate with you.
So the first one is to try different combinations of your affirmations by using either the first, the second, or the third person. So a first person example would be, I am loved. A second person example would be something like, you are loved. And a third person would be, Julian is loved. Or you can mix it up. I, Julian, am loved and am loving.
Or you could have...
Yeah, go on.
You, Julian, are loved. Which you are.
You can share this tender moment with us now.
So that's different ways you can say your affirmations and, just play around with it and find which feels most comfortable to you, or mix it up for a change, really. But there are also other things you can do with your affirmations and other ways you can use them to, enhance the experience, really.
So you can record your affirmations to play back to yourself whenever you want to. And you can do it really simply by recording it on either your phone or your computer. So it's like a DIY affirmations. There are also commercially available affirmations which are out there, which are recorded professionally like ours, which you can find on our website at brilliantlivinghq.com/affirmations-products.
And the great thing about using pre-recorded affirmations is they're sort of a really good way to kickstart your affirmation habit. It's a bit like a shortcut. And they're also actually very relaxing and affirming, funnily enough. Maybe that's why they're called affirmations. And actually on ours, we have a special way of recording them, don't we? We use really lovely, beautiful music. So, we might even play you some next week because we're planning to bring you some examples of different affirmations in our next episode. So whether you record your own or download ours, listen to your tracks several times a day, especially initially, and obviously only when it's safe to do so. And what we suggest you do is when you listen to your recordings or the recordings that you buy, that you use a combination of what we call active and passive listening.
So for active listening, you should focus on each affirmation as you hear it. Repeat the words out loud, or indeed in your head to yourself in the first person, like, I am this. Or add your name, like, I, Julian, am. And don't forget to try and get this sense of the emotion of it, as if it's already real to you as you say each affirmation.
And with passive listening, the idea behind passive listening is that you have the recording quietly playing in the background without specifically focusing on it. So you could be doing something else and you just got it on there in the background. You might be doing the gardening or cooking or
walking the dog.
If
you've got one, that is.
If you've got one, yeah. We're always going on about walking the dog or doing something with the dog, aren't we?
Yeah, I think we're a little bit obsessed with our dog, aren't we? Our dog dude.
Our dog dude who's literally lying on the floor in between us as we record this.
And it's usually okay, but very occasionally you might hear him start snoring.
We normally give him a little
Anyway,
prod.
back to passive listening.
So basically, you are sort of aware of the affirmations going on in the background, but you're not repeating them, you're not concentrating on them. And the really clever thing about this is that your subconscious still hears them. And because it's repeated, it supplements your active listening.
Right.
And of course, you only do this when it's safe to do so. But it is just a really nice way of getting like extra affirmations into your brain. And there are actually another sort of type, a variation on this called subliminal affirmations, which is where you can't really hear the affirmation. It's just going on just below.
So the audio level is recorded very low, in other words.
And that's like a variation of that as well. Now, the next little method is to write out your affirmations by hand.
All of them, or one at a time?
Well, it's totally up to you. I mean, it might depend on how many you've got, of course. But the thing about this is it's a great method for if you experience a lot of resistance to a specific statement. We talked earlier, didn't we, about the I love and fully accept myself one.
Yes.
So if you were to be saying that and feeling a lot of resistance, it can be really helpful to write it down. And really, like all the other things we said about affirmations, to get the most out of this writing technique, as you actually write out, and I'm talking about writing it by hand, as you do it, focus on feeling positive and inspired and empowered as you write. And you can make your statements even more powerful by adding in how they make you feel at the end of it, at the end of your affirmation.
I like the sound of that.
As if it was already so. So if you go back to the one or more question that you said, do you write one out or do you write all of them out?
Yep.
Sitting down and writing out one affirmation at a time repeatedly is an excellent way of focusing your positive attention and your powerful intention on what you're affirming.
Right.
It's a bit like doing lines at school.
I
don't know if people know what those are really. Did you ever have any lines to do at school?
I think I did. We used to try and always put 10 pens together so we could write 10 out at a time.
How did you do that?
We used to sort of glue them all together, sort of with a bit of sellotape.
You are joking.
No, of course we did. We definitely did that.
That's like a writing machine.
Yeah,
I can't
definitely.
even imagine what that looked like.
Everybody did that.
Just explain what lines were, just in case anybody out there is not old enough to, or was never naughty enough to experience it.
If you were at school and you'd done something very naughty, and you'd said something naughty, you might get sort of, right, you're going to have to write that out 10 times. I must not
be rude to the teacher.
Be rude to the teacher.
I must remember to bring my homework in. That sort of thing.
So you had to write that out Actually,
10
I said 10
times?
times,
I was gonna
100
say,
times it would
10
be.
times would be quite nice, wouldn't it? Anyway.
Yeah, with my pen, you could have done that in one foul swoop.
I think you need to patent that idea.
It never was very good. It always looked a bit naff, but
Yeah,
you always had a
I'm
go.
Surprised the teacher didn't see right through that. Anyway, the idea was that you repeatedly wrote something down and that it was going to make you a better student somehow.
I think actually that would actually refill me with fear again, wouldn't it?
Don't say
It'd bring
that.
back the ideas of my schooling. Oh dear, the trauma.
Anyway, it is actually, despite what we've just been saying, it's a really lovely thing to do, to sit down and write down your affirmations, either one of them or several of them, and to feel it as you write it. I don't know, there's something, about doing that physical thing, isn't it?
Yes.
And always to remember to do it in a positive mindset. And, you put on some inspirational music or some guided affirmations.
I think you might be a kinesthetic learner.
Why?
Well, you always like to write things down, don't you? See, I quite like to type, but you particularly like to write things down.
I like
so
writing.
Find what works for you, I think, is important. So you could indeed sing or chant your affirmations.
Yep, and that's the next one, singing or chanting your affirmations. We're not going to do that today.
That's a shame.
We're
Maybe
not going to do
another
that today, but if any of you do, we'd love to hear them.
Now, here's something we actually saw today, isn't it? You can write affirmation statements on Post-it notes and place them at key strategic points around your house, around your office, or on a notice board.
Yeah.
So as you look in the mirror, you have, I am attractive. Or as you open the fridge door, you say, have it on there on a Post-it note, I am slim.
Yeah, you have it on your fridge door and maybe even when you get in the fridge.
I don't think we should recommend anybody gets in the fridge.
No, not when you get in the fridge. You know what I mean? You open the door, you put your hand in the fridge and there's this Post-it note.
I know, that was
saying,
being naughty.
I make healthy choices.
So lists on notice boards, cards in your pocket. I like that idea that you perhaps bring something out and you suddenly see a nice positive affirmation or maybe an image on the wall.
Yeah, just something to just, reinforce your affirmations.
Cool.
So I think that is enough for everybody to be getting on with this week.
Yeah, indeed.
Should we just remind ourselves very, very quickly of what we've been talking about?
Go for it.
Okay, so we talked about how to create your own DIY affirmations, effective affirmations. It's about taking your limiting thoughts, the things that get in your way, and turning them around and writing them in a positive manner in the present tense. And then it's about repeating them, isn't it? About saying them over and over again and finding different variations of doing that throughout the day. And we also talked about a few other little ways in which you can enhance that experience. So you can record them, so you can listen to them as you walk around or whatever you're doing. We talked about, what else did we talk about?
Singing or chanting your affirmations.
Writing
putting them on Post-it notes, writing them with the 10 pens.
And we talked about passive and active listening.
Yeah.
So, definitely a lot to be getting on with this week. So we hope you have a great time with your affirmations. And as always, we love to know what you make of them.
Thanks, as always, for all your reviews. The show notes can be found in the usual place, brilliantlivingHQ.com/episode 18. And there is one further thing I wanted to say. We've had a really, really good week, haven't we?
Yes, we have. We've had a lovely week because we've been nominated for the Good Podcast Awards for 2014.
Yeah, I know.
From goodpodcast.com.
And we were in the category of self-help.
Yeah, along with some other very, very good podcasts.
Yeah, indeed. But it was brilliant to be nominated for that. So
it was.
We're very,
absolutely thrilled. So massive thanks to Scott Lamont, who does that podcast. That was actually the last one of the Good Podcast podcasts.
Yeah, so do check out that episode.
Yeah.
We'll put a link in the show notes.
Yeah, he did a really great job. And also check out the other self-help podcasts that are in there.
And actually all of the podcasts, because there are some great ones which are really, really making us chuckle. Yeah. And it was also lovely the way, the style in which Scott presents it as well.
Does a really
like an
good
awards Oscar ceremony.
So on that note, Lovely to see you this week, and we look forward to getting together
Lovely
with
to see you.
Yeah, we'll see you. Lovely to talk to you.
Nice to see you. To see you. Nice.
Lovely to talk to you this week, and we look forward to getting together again next week. So it's goodbye from me, Catherine.
And it's goodbye from me, Julian.
Changeability Podcast. Changeability way. The Changeability Podcast. The vibe of the day. Changeability Podcast. The Changeability way. Changeability Podcast. Do-da-do-da-do-da-day. Yeah.
Psst. It's Catherine's Bloomers. Why is it important to write them down?
It is, but we haven't said that yet.
Ah, okay. So I couldn't really say that then, could I?